Welcome back. An election manifesto is basically a list of promises that a political party makes to the electorate, outlining their plans and strategies in place should they win a general election. As Namibians get ready to vote, we have seen many parties by now releasing their manifestos. And to help us break it all down, we've got political analyst Fanuel Kaapama with us in studio. Very good afternoon to you, Kaapama, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Much obliged. I briefly explained in my intro what a manifesto is, but why should the everyday person care about what a manifesto is?
Yes. No, thank you very much. Let's start there on what is a manifesto. Basically, a manifesto is a wish list of a political party. Now, the wish list would also have varying depth. Some are mere wish list listing issues. Some goes into depth to discuss strategies. Some goes into depth discussing potential policies and so on. Now, for the importance of that for a citizen, democracy, it's about choice, political choice. How do you make a choice if you do not know what are the substantive differences between the different options that are in front of you?
Absolutely.
So that's why I think you don't just go on voting day and you throw your vote at anything that comes by. There should be something that informs you as to why you put your cross where you want to put it.
Absolutely.
And the manifesto is one of those issues. So it's not the only issue, it's one of the issues.
One of the issues. In your opinion, what makes a strong and effective manifesto, and looking at contemporary issues right now that need to be addressed?
Yes, now a good manifesto is one that speaks to the issues that the ordinary men and women are grappling with in their daily lives.
Yeah.
That is one. A good manifesto is one that is based on credible evidence. A good manifesto is one that not only lists but even indicate that if this is the objective, how is the party, once it's elected,
in other words, realistic.
Realistic, yeah. Yes. So like what one doesn't see in many manifestos is like, say for instance, if you are promising a house for every Namibian, what would it cost? Given the current Namibian resource constraints, how much would you be able to allocate per year? How many houses are you going to build per year? Within a 5-year period, which is normally the tenure before the next election, what would you have achieved? Now, one of the challenges is that many political parties try to withhold those details in the sense that if you don't achieve them, if you have promised 100 houses, and you were only able to build 20, then you are more transparent. People can hold you to something that you have quantified that you were not able to achieve. And I think that's where, especially the electorate, should not only be guided by what is promised, but how would the party go about to achieve what is promised.
Absolutely. So it kind of gives the impression that there is quite a temptation when individuals or when parties come up with a manifesto of telling the truth and sometimes exaggerating what they say they are going to do if they win the election.
Now, I think political parties in the times of elections, they are like salesmen that you find in different places, furniture shop. So they would exaggerate in order to sell the product, which is their party. So the key issue is that does the voter have the capacity to digest and make the decision as to this is realistic and this is an unrealistic promise.
Yeah.
So I think that is key. And I think that's where different players, like the media, the departments of politics at the university, civil society organizations, different interest group organizations could help the voter to have that analysis, that breakdown.
So they have an informed...
so that they can, like say for instance, I looked at manifestos of different political parties. They are talking about agriculture. So agricultural union, for instance, could now say, okay, since all of you are speaking about agriculture or land reform, come, share the panel and interact. Now, also what is very important, during the process of digesting the manifestos, more parties tend to play one in court A, one in court B, and there is no cross-fertilization of ideas, especially where different parties do sectoral debates where they would now go deep into their manifesto. Some of those platforms are lacking, and I think because of that, sometimes the voters do not have that platform to thoroughly digest the content of the manifestos.
Yeah. We've seen some political parties, one of the biggest party being, of course, SWAPO, launching their manifestos, LPM also being one of them. But when you look at the time and the significance of these elections, where we have a very large young demographic whose thinking is much more different from way in the 90s, where people bought into that, well, we fought for this country, therefore, you must vote for us. The dynamics have changed over the years. What does it take now to sway the younger generation in terms of saying, like, look, this guy really does sound like he knows what he's talking about. I identify with this party, and I'm willing to give my vote because of what they stand for in their manifesto.
Yeah, no, definitely there's no questions. The demographics have changed. But would one be able to say the current young generation have a better understanding of democracy and politics? Would one be able to say the current generation would be more interested in the manifestos than in the past? And I think for one to make that call, it would require empirical evidence to that effect. If I say, for instance, take the youth of the early 90s, there were greater interest in the young people at that time, and even a greater political awareness.
Was it because we're coming fresh out of the liberation?
So I think to generalize and say those in the past, they were also young people.
Absolutely.
And not all of them may have simply voted on ethnicity or history alone or the liberation struggle alone. But I think one of the challenges of the current generation it speaks to the political awareness, their political activism. How many of them follow news, for instance? How many of them read newspapers?
Yeah.
How many of them goes beyond social media cheap talk in order to be able to digest? So I think that's why I'm saying it would require very hard empirical evidence to tell me or to convince anyone, for me to convince anyone that now young people are looking at issues. Because I think for one to do that, even when, like, say, for instance, public talks are called, public lectures, how many young people really would make time and go and attend? I attended one public lecture the other night, and I could see the usual faces. And I was wondering, it's that time of elections. Where are the young voters, apart from the usual faces that we are used to?
Yes.
So for one to be able to pass that test, I think young people cannot just sit there and on social media alone. Social media, yes, can give credible information, but there is also a lot of junk in social media.
You have the privilege of sitting down with young minds in university, yes. And I'm sure you do have these conversations with them around the elections. And what is the conversation like from a child that's perhaps born in 1999 or the AMA 2000 as they call them, yes, around politics? What is the conversation like in terms of when they say, like, look, this is how I'm going to vote and this is why I'm going to vote in the manner that I am going to do it?
Okay. Yes, now I think one issue that will set the current generation of students, and by the way, I have been teaching for almost 20 years. So if I take the students from 200, for instance, you could see an element of loyalty, political loyalty to a particular cause. You could see an element of fear. There were certain go areas that even you as a lecturer, when you want to go there, students are trying to look at where is the nearest window so that I can get out of this discussion. If you are engaging young people now in classes, students, there is no fear. They engage with any topic.
And they interrogate everything.
You also very little political loyalty to a cause. Young people will today say, no, but this particular politician is raising a very valid point. In a class 3 weeks later, they say, no, but I think although that point was valid the other day, I think what this same politician is saying today, it's a lot of junk, for instance. So that loyalty to a politician, that loyalty to a party, that loyalty to a very specific sectarian cause is broken. And that's why I think young people, especially those that are... Now, let me also not generalize the experience of those who have the privilege of sitting in a political science class at UNAM to young people that dropped out of grade 10 or 12. These are two different types of animals. But speaking from the one that has been in class, I see there is a lot of very good debates that are taking place. And one wonders, those who are there, how much do they reach out to their peer and influence the public discourse at that level?
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about local language, the importance of translating the manifestos and what the parties say they stand for and what they will deliver and if they win the elections into our local languages.
Yes.
Do we somehow feel that, they are being left out because, well, if I can speak English, if I have a comprehension of what is in that document that's usually very also, very well put together in terms of high-level English, what more for my grandmother, what more for my cousin who never had the opportunity to go to school and, understand what is being written in English? What do you think, how do you think we can remedy that?
Now, thank you for that question. I have perused extensively through a lot of manifestos that were produced for this year. Having done that, what are the shortcomings? You read a manifesto and then you wonder, okay, with this one, is it enough for it to reach the ordinary men and women on the street? As you rightly pointed out, one of the first barriers is that of language. Almost all manifestos are in English. If you look at, I think the smallest manifesto in terms of pages is around about 35, 40 pages. There are other manifestos that goes to 80, 90 pages. So after producing a manifesto in English of so many pages and it's out there, is it enough to reach out to the voters?
How many actually do finish reading?
Yeah, how many do finish? And in fact, even for those that are in the business of political science and research, like myself, reading through those 8 pages, you read and then you say, okay, can I jump this one? Can you see? Because just to get to the end. Now, also, many parties have the focus that you have to have a rally where you launch this one, and then you can go home and say, I'm going to vote, wait and see what would happen on election day. No serious house-to-house work are being done across all parties, where now, after you have launched a manifesto, you take it to the ordinary women and men in their houses. I recall from 1989, the first elections, some of us did the house-to-house work in Windhoek West and Commercedal, here in Windhoek and many other places across the country. Because the strategy was take what is in the manifesto now to the people in the comfort of their own home
and break it down,
and break it down in the language that they understand. So how many parties? We are seeing a lot of billboards. Does the billboard carry a message? Or is the focus on that that day people should just recognize the face of the candidates? So, and that's why I think manifestos are very important, but it depends on how you do it.
Absolutely.
Now, the other issue that is also very important, you cannot just read a manifesto alone. So after the party have made good promises, what type of candidates do they put across? Do these candidates have the capacity to execute what is promised in the manifesto? So those are some of the pertinent questions. And I think we need to not only look at the manifesto in isolation, we should look at the manifesto in relation to many other issues.
Absolutely. And talking about that, to that point, manifestos is a term that we hear a lot during campaigns. But post-elections, when everybody on the dust is settled, the victor has been announced, and some of the candidates are licking their wounds, manifestos are no longer heard of. What must the electorate do to ensure that, wait, Kaapama, this is what you promised. Remember, this is what you said you will do if we put you in office. You are not keeping up to your word. We somehow don't see that. It's as if the person who qualifies to vote goes there, puts a cross, and then after putting that cross in the box, buries their election card, and then they wait another 4 years. But in between, there isn't any sense of, wait a minute, let's hold this guy accountable. I remember he said he's going to build a school. He said he was going to build a hospital. But now that is happening, and we're in the 3rd year now in office. How do you think that can be remedied?
No, thank you. You see, a manifesto is like a business plan for a political party. Now, when you develop a business plan and you go into the bank and you present your business plan and the bank is impressed and they decide they are giving you a loan. What do you do when you get out of the bank? Do you throw it in the dustbin and say, I wanted a loan, now I have a loan, so what do I need a business plan for? And businesses that operates like that are the ones that later fails. So a party, and this, when you have a manifesto, it's not only for when you take power. Even when you get one seat, the manifesto should be able now to guide and inform your legislative agenda, the type of motions that you are going to bring across. The budget is debated every year. What you are going to say on the different budget votes, for instance, should be informed by the content of your manifesto. And sometimes you don't see this. You see, after an election is held, even the members that got elected do not know what is their manifesto, or they are very quick to forget the content of their manifesto, and then they become opportunists. If the other party have said that, for me to be seen to be relevant, let me say something different, even where the other party supported what you promised in your manifesto. So, and I think that's where, for voters, besides just voting, how do you hold your leaders accountable?
Absolutely.
In the different party structures. And I think if parties are serious about building democracy, they shouldn't only focus on the manifesto at the time of elections, but they should also say, okay, now we are having recess in parliament. Let me go back to my constituent and explain that in my manifesto of our party, we had these issues. And in the last round, last session of parliament, we have brought these issues that we have promised to the table.
And you also get feedback from the people.
And then you get feedback from. Because why is that important? Namibian taxpayers pays for the political party funding. What do the parties do with this money? How do they use this money to create that interface and keep the content of their manifestos relevant? And I think that is lacking.
Fanuel Kaapama, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we've run out. This is a conversation that I know that can carry on for hours on end, but we'll definitely still be talking to you in the course or in the run-up to the November elections. I think there's still a lot of things, a lot of exciting things that will be happening to the run-up to the elections. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Much obliged. That was political analyst Fanuel Kaapama talking to us about the importance of a manifesto and why you, as somebody who has to go out there and vote, have to acquaint yourself with this very important document so you can make an informed decision about the person or the party that you want to see in public office. We'll continue with some international news right after this.